Hello, fellow seekers. Welcome back to the Law of One Spiritual Advice Podcast. My name is El, and I return to share with you some spiritual philosophy on the Law of One and my interpretation of it and life experience. So today I wanted to speak about something that is more close to my heart. I thought, that I generally put out better podcasts when I speak about something that I am passionate about. So I thought to myself, hey, don't always want podcasts necessarily to feel like homework. I would like to just sort of speak about things I want to speak about. And I was talking with a friend the other day where we just got into a nice little back and forth on some spiritual topics, and I realized I have a lot to say about this, which is going to be how the body is a creature of the mind. Or another way to put it is just how to understand your body, how to understand the body and its workings with the mind and the spirit and the interplay between those three. And so I just would like to use this podcast to highlight that idea, and with it as well, I will probably be speaking about the chakras, because with the body and the mind, a lot of it has to do with understanding how the physical is connected to the metaphysical. So if I may, before we get into it too deep, just explain that, the body is the physical, and then maybe the chakra system that is explained in many cultures is one that is of the metaphysical. So it is more something that is like in your mind. You could technically, if you had the eyes to see, I suppose you could probably physically see the metaphysical chakras. But when I'm explaining these things, I do want you to understand that this is something that, is more so going on mentally within your mind, which is what this whole podcast is going to explain, how the body is a creature of the mind. So before I begin, you can get all of this info at my website, theoneinfinitecreator.com, and there is links to the LL research material, who provides us all of this for free, and we thank them very much for that. So I'm going to start with a quote, and I have a few of them lined up here. So this is just going to be a quick short one. This is session 5.2. And so Ross states here, "It is necessary to know your body well. This is a matter of using the mind to examine how the feelings, the biases, what you would call the emotions, affect various portions of the body complex. It shall be necessary to both understand the body polarities and to accept them, repeating in a chemical, physical manifestation the work you have done upon the mind bethinking the consciousness. The body is a creature of the mind's creation." End of quote. So I suppose this is just a lead-in to just a way to picture it. I sometimes take for granted that maybe somebody listening to this really has absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. So I want to sort of always give some of the very basics of it. I know that the really common distortion that I hear whenever we talk about chakras is somebody's thinking, yes, I've gone to a yoga class before and they've talked about all the chakras, and we've done various different sitting exercises and poses and sounds that we make to to pull the energies up into those chakras. And oh wow, where do I begin with that one? I mean, I believe that is possibly what is happening when you're doing that, but like from my understanding, the chakras are more related to, like it says here, sort of feelings and emotions within the mind. And so if you're still only sort of playing around within one department of the mind, you may consider that even though you may be sounding the right sounds of certain chakras, etc., you're sort of like, what's a better way of explaining it? You're sort of reversed the understandings, and you're sort of almost trying to, when you're operating that way, you're sort of trying to say, hey, look, the mind is a creature of the body. And so I must work on the body in order to fix my mind. And I would suggest it's the opposite. It's actually that as you work on the mind, it will perfect the body moment by moment. And so, I don't know if I've complicated that a little bit too much, but I just really dislike the idea of people thinking that, yes, I've balanced my chakras by making a certain hand signal and making a certain sound, and therefore, I've opened up that chakra and I've activated it. And I would suggest no. I mean, the chakra work is the work of a lifetime. It is the work of, you can definitely open or activate a chakra partially and momentarily, and it can kind of go back to its maybe normal state. But what I understand seeking to be, seeking the truth and the spiritual type of stuff, is to eventually open all the chakras, or at least the ones that concern our lessons here in this density at this moment, open those chakras up and balance them to a sort of minimal acceptable degree within ourselves. And we do that by working with the mind. So let me continue. So this is going to be session 15.12, and it's just a little bit of a addition to the previous one. So the questioner asks, how does an individual go about balancing himself? What is the first step? Ra answers, I am Ra. The steps are only one. That is, an understanding of the energy centers which make up the mind-body-spirit complex. End of quote. And that quote actually goes on real long, where they then go into each individual chakra. And so instead of me reading you that whole thing, because it's a little bit complicated, I would prefer to just give you my, my opinions, my general understandings of what I have read in the material, and just sort of put it in a bit more of a human speak, and do recognize that, I am not perfect, and I could be incorrect in some of these things, so take everything with a bit of a grain of salt. But I will, before I actually, try to explain to you all the chakras, I do want to read you one more quote, because this one is really going to give you a better idea of what I'm trying to explain, how this is sort of mind work. Okay, so this is going to be how, when we examine the sensations that come into the mind, things that leave an aftertaste, let's say, on the tongue of the mind, those things are catalysts. Those things are, basically things that should be noted by the mind, or they are being noted by the mind as important, because they probably play a role in the lessons that you are trying to learn in this density right now. So just to say it again, anytime a aftertaste, something lingers in the mind, there's some catalyst there it is there for you to digest and to look into further. And so here I would read you 64.20. The questioner asks, in the healing exercises, when you say examine the sensations of the body, do you mean those sensations available to the body via the five senses, or in relation to the natural functions of the body, such as touching, loving, sexual sharing, and company, or are you speaking of something else altogether? Ra answers, I am Ra. The questioner may perceive its body complex at this moment. It is experiencing sensations. Most of these sensations, or in this case nearly all of them, are transient and without interest. However, the body is the creature of the mind. Certain sensations carry importance due to the charge or power which is felt by the mind upon the experience of the sensation. For instance, at this space-time nexus, one sensation is carrying a powerful charge and may be examined. This is the sensation of what you would call the distortion towards discomfort due to the cramped position of the body complex during this working. In other words, he's sitting down with his legs crossed, probably. Continuing on. In balancing, you would then explore this sensation. Why is this sensation powerful? Because it was chosen in order that the entity might be of service to others in energizing this contact. Each sensation that leaves the aftertaste of meaning upon the mind, that leaves the taste within the memory, shall be examined. These are the sensations of which we speak. Okay, so maybe that gives you a little bit more of an idea here of essentially, as let's say, a sensation leaves the aftertaste on the mind. Well, that is something for you to examine. That is something for you to essentially look at. And if we're going to talk into the mechanics of balancing, well, what are you doing? Well, let's talk about that quickly. If you're a positive entity who seeks the positive path of unity, sees all others as a portion of the Creator, as is yourself, then you would be wanting to work with your catalyst in terms of acceptance. For acceptance, what do they say? Acceptance sort of smooths the otherwise distortion that would be created from you not accepting, the creation as sort of perfect as it is. And then you have the negative path, the service to self path, which is a path of separation instead of unity, in which the seeker seeks to separate itself more and more from the creation. That entity would then work with control. So positive would be acceptance, negative would be control, because they're trying to control and separate things into their own little departments so that they may, use them to benefit themselves. Okay, so whenever you have that catalyst, now let's bring it back to the quote that sticks to the mind, right? That stays with you a little bit longer. Well, then I would suggest that is something that if you're on the positive path, you need to learn to accept. And through acceptance, you may, I suppose you would explain it as smooth out the energy flowing through the energy body, which obviously is going to be a sign of health. And that, the distortion then doesn't have to get all bungled up inside the chakra system. It can instead flow through you, up into the higher areas, in which, then you can have the downward spiraling energy coming down and perfecting your body moment by moment. So, that's the long run. That's the longer view of things. All right, so I feel that now I've laid down the sort of framework for you to understand why the body is a creature of the mind and not necessarily that the mind is a creature of the body. Because I know that, if you even think about the world that we live in, if you go to the doctor, they will often work on you as if it's the opposite, right? So if you go to a sort of regular doctor, what do? They look at your body and they generally say, here, we'll do this, and then we'll give you this other physical thing to change the body, et cetera, et cetera. But they never really look at the source of the distortion, the source of the unhealthiness, which is likely a distortion in the mind, something within the mind that is not accepted, something that the mind holds on to daily, weekly, monthly, whatever, right? That causes friction within the mind. And you know it, I know it, we all know it, that when you have stress in your life, like I warn people all the time, man, you're going to kill yourself if you are going to be this stressed out about these things. As much as you are maybe correct to be stressed, right? Like I'm not saying that I'm not saying that the world is not a terribly chaotic place that is not something that is going to, be stressful and cause a lot of friction in the mind. That still is your responsibility to remember that all is well, and that when you are, getting into those areas of your mind that are very stressed and distorted and a lot of friction, a lot of uneasiness going on, that's sort of, I suppose, a reminder to you that is a good time to go into the self and to examine these sensations and these feelings, and don't just leave them, right? Like that's sort of your shadow side. As you get closer to the light, the darker your shadow will be, and so you will see that shadow. And I suppose what I'm getting at is that you would like to accept that shadow instead of deny it and sort of be a creature in denial who says, no, that is not me. But then the sensation of the mind, it stays in the sensation of the mind, and eventually you never look at it, and eventually the catalyst, goes from the mind, from the distorted mind, and is offered to the body complex, which I didn't read you that quote here, but that is somewhere in the Law of One material, which they basically state that, all catalyst is offered to the mind. If it doesn't sort of be taken upon by the mind, then eventually it is offered to the body so that the mind can no longer ignore it. And isn't that a sort of a beautiful thing? Like, it's a bit scary, of course, but I'm dealing with it right now. Here, let me give you a personal example of how I view my body and the things that, maybe go through my mind as I have a distortion on my body. So right now, okay, I have a sty in my eye. I actually had it checked out, and it's a clogged tear duct. Okay, so I have like a little clogged tear duct in my eye, which makes a tiny little bump in my eye, and you can sort of see that it looks a little bit red and puffy or whatever, right? So here's what I'm thinking. Obviously, there's some physicalness to this, right? Am I washing my face properly? Am I not touching my eyes, things like this. However, all of those things that I just mentioned you can take them back to their source, and you can take them back to the mind. If I maybe wasn't washing my face, that would be because I'm probably, being lazy or complacent, or I'm stressed, or I'm upset, or whatever, right? So I have all these reasons as to why not doing the very basic sort of lower chakra balancing that I should, which is the daily living, which is sort of just just doing the daily stuff of your life that is just required to be a healthy person. So you may see that even though there's a lot of stuff happening in the physical, it is still all born in the mind. So let me continue on with my eye analogy here, right? So I like to then think about on my body, well, first of all, what's going on in my mind? Is there anything like really sticking out in my mind in this sort of week and this month that I'm having trouble digesting? Is there some friction in my mind that keeps coming up? Well, that's going to be my first hint. I'm going to go into that, and I'm just going to kind of see where maybe my perception needs to be widened, where my perception could be more balanced, where my perception is a little bit narrow, and therefore it's causing distortion, and I need to widen that perception up to a point that allows the catalyst to then flow through me so I may accept it better. And so, well, if I'm being honest with you, I don't fully know the reason for my eye, but I was thinking about last night. What I do is I also like to think on my body, where is the distortion on my body? Is it like in relation to what chakra? And I will still go through the chakras in a moment, but we have the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, starting from the bottom, working our way up. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So indigo is the third eye. So what I'm looking at is if my eye is, on my face, then my the closest chakras to those are going to be either the indigo chakra, the third eye, or the blue chakra, the throat chakra. So I'm sort of giving myself a hint that my blockage or my distortion, which is causing this bodily distortion, has something to do with probably my, throat chakra or my indigo chakra. So now what would I do there, right? Well, I would examine the energy of those two chakras and see if I can find a hint in my mind as to where it is that I could be thinking a little bit more clearly. Okay, so the blue chakra is one of speaking your truth, of manifesting. It is the first outgoing chakra in that, it's an outpouring. It's from the throat. It's kind of self-explanatory, right? All the previous chakras is just sort of energy coming in and you interpreting things, and then as it comes to the throat, you are expressing things. You're expressing your truth. You're expressing your life. You're expressing the things in your heart. And so I have to think to myself, hey, is there something that I'm doing where I'm not expressing things? Am I am I not living my truth? Am I not manifesting it the right way? And I'm actually going to lean towards it not being the throat chakra because it's not really much to do with my throat or my mouth. We're still kind of up in my eye. But I do like to examine any chakra that's really nearby, just so I'm not missing anything. So there you go, right? I'm feeling pretty good about my manifesting and my speaking the truth and feeling heard, etc., etc. So I'm thinking that my throat chakra is probably not a lot to do with this. All right, so what is my next investigation? The closest next thing to my eye is, the third eye chakra, the indigo chakra. So what does the energy of that one deal with? Well, that one deals with acceptance of self as an infinite worthy part of the creator. But I would also state that it is a lot to do with the metaphysical side of life, even meditation and silence and I suppose the focus on the metaphysical, the unity, right? Like if I use the word unity, that is definitely equal with the indigo chakra. There's much unity going on with the indigo chakra. That is the lessons of the indigo chakra. Oh man, I better tell you guys about the chakras here before I get too off point. But I do like actually that I've given you the example first, so that now when I go through and explain to you the chakras 1 through 7, you maybe can get a better of idea how to interpret it. So yeah, with my eye, right? The indigo chakra, there's probably then a distortion in my eye, and I'm gonna feel that it has something to do with me not accepting myself as a perfect, worthy individual. It may have something to do with the fact that I'm also not necessarily feeling like the perfection in every moment, which I know is a good thing to be true, and I do believe that to be true. But I'm definitely a little bit off in the future these days, where my mind is sort of moving forward to the future instead of being in this moment today, right here, right now. So there's a bit of a hint for me. And yeah, the big one too is that you're a being of infinite worth. And I do like to remind myself I'm a being of infinite worth. But, that's easier said than done, let's say. So, there's a lot of I would suggest if I was to get back into my more daily meditation, that is probably something that would, start to heal this I thing that I have going on, where I start to then remember about the focus of the metaphysical and the importance of it, and so that my balance comes back into balance. I feel like right now I'm probably more in the the bottom chakras, the more physical things, and I've maybe spending a little less time on the the important part of unity, of a daily meditation, of reminding myself all is well and perfect here and now, and I could do a little bit better in that department. So I wonder if that is why I have a bit of a distortion in my eye, that I can't see perfectly, because I'm not seeing perfectly. Right? I'm not seeing things properly in the mind, and therefore I don't see things physically properly. So there you go. There is an example of how you may do it. And I'm sorry to reverse order, but here we go. We're going to go through the chakras, okay? So we will start with the red chakra. Well, let's actually just go with the fact that let's start with the number 7. So Ross states, there's 7 densities, there's 7 chakras, there's 7 colors of the rainbow. There is, if you want to get technical, there is 7 densities, which is sort of like a dimension, if you will. But, if you're going to split the creation up, well, first of all, the creation is 1. If you'd like to split it up, you may split it up into sections of 7, where you have the 1 split into 7, and then if you look at any of those individual ones within the 7, you can split those into 7 individually. You can split them into 7 infinitely, right? So you go 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, infinitely. You can divide it by, by that infinitely. In other words, there is your infinity, and there is an infinity of gradations, and people don't like sometimes that you have a number that's different from theirs. I have 12 chakras, you only have 7, blah, 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 blah. I don't care. My understanding is there are the basic 7, and you can get finer gradations of finer chakras, but we're just trying to keep it simple, keep it easy. We're not masters of the universe where we're necessarily concerned with the finer, higher chakras. When you get there, you'll get there. You won't need me. It's what I would suggest. So, all right, let's do it. All right, red chakras. So, energy comes through you, through the bottom chakras. Like you are like an electricity circuit. You're plugged into the universe, and the energy then comes up through your body, through the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Once you have opened up all of those to a sort of minimal degree, you do then have a downward spiraling energy from, everything's from the creator, but this is sort of from the infinity aspect of the creator, the infinite aspect, which comes down into your body and then sort of balances and perfects, moment by moment, the body and the experience. But it is the sort of conversion of these two energies within you, which I would maybe suggest create balance. Okay. So, oh my goodness, wow, so much groundwork I gotta lay for these things. Hey, like if you're sort of new to this, and I'm sorry for all you more experienced folks, but maybe you'll hear something in this that I take for granted that I know that maybe you don't. I don't know, something like that. Okay, so also we are in the 3rd density, which means that, so remember I said there's sort of 7 densities. Well, the 3rd density is the density of choice, the choice to serve others or to serve the self. And so there is correlation with the chakras and the densities. So if we're in the 3rd density, then it would make sense that the first 3 chakras are sort of activated. And if we are in the 3rd density, then that means that we will be moving to the next density, right? 3 to 4. Okay, so then what does that imply to you? Well, it implies to me that we're then going to be working with the energy that moves the energy from the chakra from the 3 to the 4. So you have your first 3 chakras energized in this creation. And as we slowly move from the third density to the fourth density, you are encouraged to activate your fourth chakra. The first three are fairly basic, and I wouldn't say would come easy per se, but they come easier. And then once you got those three down and basically balanced, then you may enter the heart, the fourth chakra. So I've started 5 times to explain the chakras and stopped. Let me start. The first chakra is the red one. So the energy comes through, and Ra states in elsewhere that, what is life but survival? And so the first thing that you get to react to in life, the first reaction, the first chakra, is one of survival. Okay, and then, survival we can break down into finer categories if you want. If you want to just call the red chakra survival, that's, I would say that's appropriate enough, but we can go into subcategories. So what does it mean to survive, right? So, loosely, shelter, food, mating even, right? The sort of the sexual, the very, very basic sexual desires. There is security, right? Like just very basic stuff. So how do you then interpret that though, right? It's more about how you feel about these things in your mind. You could be the most secure person in the world, but your mind thinks that you're not secure, you're insecure, and therefore, you get blockage in the red chakra. And so with each of these chakras, at least when I do, a meditation and I'm trying to do like a sort of a balanced meditation, I would usually do it this way. And I would start with, okay, so how do I feel about survival in myself? Obviously saying this mentally, right? And I'm going to talk to myself like, okay, so Elle, you have you have a place to live, you have a roof over your head. This is great. I'm grateful for that. Wonderful, right? I have food to feed myself. I have a job so that I can, sort of provide for myself the sort of weekliness and dailiness of life. And I have, and I'm also a sexual being. I accept that as that, I am an animal who seeks to sort of reproduce, if you will, in the most basic sense. So if I can accept all of those things within myself and I'm not denying them and I'm not causing friction within myself, then I would consider, great, I have a fairly opened red chakra, and now I can then move up to the next one, the orange chakra. So the second chakra, the orange chakra, what is your next reaction to anything, right, other than the survival? So well, it's going to be about yourself, right? So this is the idea of us being in a sort of illusion of separation, is that first you think, well, I don't really know who I am, but I know that I'd like to survive. That's a very basic instinct of every animal on this planet. So that's your red chakra. And then you go into the second chakra, which is, what am I? I am a self. and I know it's basically just self. I would call it almost the personal chakra. It's a really hard one to describe to people, and every time I start, I kind of get bungled up here in what I'm trying to explain, but I would consider it personal chakra. So, personal eccentricities that come from yourself. In other words, things that you don't accept about yourself, they're sort of all expressed through there. So how would what are my positive statements that I sort of think to myself, my mantras, if you will, to get into that second orange chakra when I'm doing my balancing? I would say something like, I am confident with who I am. I am a person. I have my own views and my own thoughts, and those are good and well. And, I am also an individual who seeks to understand and be understood. And I love myself, right? Like, it's a very basic thing. You may not say necessarily the words love yourself, but you accept yourself. You accept yourself as a individual, as a person. And so, like I said, I get really messed up with the second one. So when I explain the third one, I think then you get some more clarity here. So the third one, the third chakra, the yellow chakra, which is sort of where your willpower is as well, is the group chakra. Okay, so we're going to go start from the bottom: survival, personal, group. Okay, so the third one is the group efforts, and it's not necessarily what you physically do within groups. It's more so, like, again, how you feel. How do you feel that you relate to culture? How do you feel that you relate to family, to friends? Are you comfortable in that area in your head? Do you feel like, oh, I don't really have a lot of friends, and I don't really speak to my family, and I hate this culture, and I hate the world, and everything sucks, and I'm just alone here all by myself, and dang. Right? Well, there you go. There's a blocked yellow chakra if I had ever heard one. That's the one where it's like, I'm a victim of society. So you poor me. Oh my goodness. Oh, why don't you see that, life is hard for me? Well, oh my goodness. How do you unblock the yellow ray? Ra says, well, to put easy, you love every entity that is known to you. You love and accept every entity, and you want nothing but, their joy, their growth. You just want the best for them. If you want the best for everybody that you know, then that is how you unblock the yellow ray, the third chakra. And so if I'm doing my balancing meditation, what are some of my sort of positive mantras that I may run through my head? I'm going to say something like, I am grateful for my friends and my family and like my roommate, and I'm very grateful for maybe my job and the sports that I do and the teammates there, and I feel that I belong, and I'm also part of this society and this culture, and although there is definitely some friction between the two, I'm a part of that society, and I love everybody. I do love everybody that I know, even the ones that disagree with me and the ones that don't like me, etc., etc. I do love them, and I know that they have unique perception that allows them to see the world the way that they see it and feel justified in it, and so I love you for that, my friend. And there you go. So there is your yellow chakra. So let's now go into the fourth chakra, to the green chakra, to the heart chakra. And so remember what I said a little earlier, how we're in the third density moving to the fourth? Well, now I can, elaborate on that you are in the third density, so your very basic three chakras are sort of your daily living, right? You're going to survival, your personal, and your group efforts. And after that, well, what do we then deal with? And what may be described as universal love. Now, what's the difference between love and universal love? Well, universal love is a love that loves all, beyond condition, let's say. So another way that I like to explain it is, right, to unblock the yellow ray, you would love everybody that is in relation to the self. In other words, everybody that you know. And to unblock the green ray, the heart chakra, I would suggest that what you would do is you love everybody that you do not know, right? So that means that this is sort of like the weird shadow side of yourself. It's almost like you have to imagine every single good and bad personality that exists on this earth or doesn't, or that can even exist in time and space and the infinity of everything. And you have to understand that that is a part of you, and that is everybody, every entity that has their thoughts are an entity of the creator, and they are somewhat good and right to think as they will, for we all operate behind a veil of forgetting, and therefore it is their right to forget, because that is their free will to then seek as they see put. And so, whether you see the wonderful things and want to accept those in your heart, that's great, that's a little easier, but then there's also the negative shadow stuff of all the negative possibilities of personalities and the evilness in the world, and you do have to internalize that part as well. And, understand that you do not understand, and that there are many ways to the creator. You know one of them. The another path is the path of the service to self, which you may not agree with. However, you may then at least accept it as a portion of the creation that is still, like all creation is, perfect, right? Creator is perfect. There is only perfection with the creator. There is nothing else, and therefore all is well. All entities are just doing their best, let's say. And so if I could at least just explain that to you so that can help you accept them better in your heart. It is not that you are embracing evil, it's that you see the evil and you say, no, that's not my taste, but I see, your sort of perception to feel the way that you do that allows you to operate in an evil way. Okay, so there's your heart chakra, one of love, compassion, love, and understanding. So if you are obviously in the heart chakra dealing with other selves, you're going to be wanting to understand them, love them, right? You're not trying to control them, just trying to make sense of them and connect with them heart to heart. What more can we do in this life? So then I would continue on to, once we go from the green chakra, move on into the blue chakra, into the throat chakra. And so I already explained it a little bit before, but I'll just reiterate. It is the first outgoing chakra before you have the energy coming into the red, orange, yellow, green. And then once it hits the blue, it is now actually going to also be going out into the universe. So like I said, it's the throat chakra, kind of makes sense. It's how you speak your truth. It is how you manifest truth. Like, it's not necessarily just speaking, it is also manifesting, bringing things into this world. It is your addition of your vibration to this universe, let's say. So everything comes through, out of that chakra, if you will. And then we then move up to the indigo chakra, which is the one just above the throat, and that is also known as the third eye. And I'm sorry, I forgot all the Indian words for them. I know a few of them, but I don't know all the names that well, so I just call them by color and name. Also, just when I explain it, then it's a good way to separate the explanations between the sort of the Indian philosophy and this philosophy, which are very, very similar. However, there's just certain terms and ideas in here that I would like to keep more Law of 1E, if that makes sense. So the indigo chakra then is, like I said, one which is blocked when you are not feeling as an entity of infinite worth. And so you need to accept yourself as a perfect, well, let's say perfectly imperfect part of the creator, and so is everybody else. So is this entire creation. So, like how do you go into the indigo chakra? You often you go into that through silence. It is entering unity. It is entering the infinity of the moment. It is the metaphysical realm of, like, your mind, if you will, right? It's sort of the connection between the physical and the metaphysical. And so the indigo chakra, is mostly, seems to be resonant with the word silence, and that silence is the creator, and that everything is born of that silence and of that infinity, and that's sort of like the creator is beyond word. The creator is beyond explanation. It is the one infinite creator for a reason, because you have to use a bunch of words to vaguely describe something that is infinite. And right, anytime that we use words to describe something infinite, we're using finite words to describe it, and therefore we will always be off. We will always be not correct in our explaining of it. So the indigo chakra, is that one of silence, is that one of infinite worth, is that one where if you sit there in meditation, that is the one that is all is well, that is the one that brings good, wonderful feelings to flow through the body. Okay, so red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo. So we've gone 6 chakras, right? And this is the one that kind of confuses people, is then you have the 7th chakra, the crown chakra, the one right above the head, if you will. And Ra states that this chakra is neither balanced or unbalanced. It is always in perfect balance, because it is basically just the overall readout of the entire chakra system of that entity. So it's more like, hey, you have your other 6 chakras right before this. They kind of have a general spacing of the 7 colors, like a rainbow, right? Like they're going to be sort of spaced in certain ways and look a certain way. And if you were to view the violet ray, I mean, it would basically just be like viewing the balance of the entity, which is always in perfect balance, because the creator is perfect. And so no matter how distorted you are still one with all. And you're always connected with the crown, with the infinity of creation, and therefore, you are protected, and that's the idea of you being perfectly imperfect. It's that it doesn't really matter how imperfect you are right now, the future you, the you that sort of comes from that crown chakra, that infinite creator you, is already perfect. and you already exist in the future in a perfectly enlightened and godlike state. However, right now we are playing our little games of separation where we pretend to be imperfect and separate so that we may, kind of play with these free will games and understand ourselves and others a little better. Okay, and that was really good because now that I explained that all to you, this last little quote, I have two little quotes here to wrap up, but this one now will make a lot more sense when I explain it to you. So this is sort of the difference between a negative and a positive seeker, but strongly polarized. So, it's not just a normal negative or positive seeker. It's one who's like really polarized towards their path. They're really putting in the effort, let's say, the work. So this quote will just demonstrate to you, which I didn't even explain yet, but how the negative seeker doesn't use the heart chakra. What the negative seeker does is they maximize the use of the bottom three chakras, red, orange, and yellow, and they then, this is my understanding of what Ross says, they skip the heart chakra, and they go like pretty much straight into the indigo, which is where they can then manifest gifts for themselves from the infinity of creation, just as the positive entity can do, except the positive entity instead goes through the bottom three, enters the heart chakra, and the heart chakra is the center, and that is then the springboard to the higher chakras. Ross says, as a positive seeker, once you enter the heart, the blue and the indigo energies are almost available immediately. Like, they're just so wonderfully connected. Once you enter the heart, you are just going to be springboarded up into the higher energies, and good for you. That is a wonderful feeling. Speaking your truth and feeling the connection and the unity with the universe and the oneness of every moment, and feeling the perfection in moment by moment, that would be you sort of being opened and balanced and up all the way up into the indigo. So with the negative seeker, right, they're going to skip the heart chakra, which is why? Because the heart chakra, like I said, is universal love. It's the one that sees everybody else as a somewhat worthy entity of the creator, as one that is worthy of love and understanding and compassion, and they say, to hell with that. Instead, I am the creator. I deserve to, do as I please, and therefore I shall rearrange the creation as I see fit to serve myself. That is at least my understanding of how it's sort of service to self entity maybe sees themselves. I could be wrong. That's a really tough one to get into. But I will read you here. It's this session from 3319. They state, is there any difference in violet ray activity or brightness between entities who are at the entrance level to fourth density positive and negative? Ra answers, I am wrong. This is correct. The violet ray of the positive fourth density will be tinged with green, blue, indigo triad of energies. This tinge may be seen as a portion of a rainbow or prism as you know it, the rays being quite distinct. The violet ray of the fourth density negative has in its aura, shall we say, the tinge of red, orange, yellow, these three rays being muddied rather than distinct. End of quote. So you can see right there, that was another way of them saying what I just said to you. It's sort of like, look, if you look at that violet ray of the entity, right, which is sort of the general readout of that entity, and you had the metaphysical eyes to see the metaphysical portion of the chakras, you would see a rainbow of sorts, and the positive entity would have a nice sort of balanced rainbow, if you will, right? Like they do say here, tinged with green, blue, indigo. I mean, I was sort of thinking that they would have all the seven in like a nice rainbow fashion, but still, it seems to me like, well, you're going to have your rainbow, and it will be tinged with green, blue, and indigo, which are the higher energy centers. And then, the negative one, they state here, basically no blue or green in there. They say just has the tint of red, orange, and yellow. And then those are being rather muddied rather than distinct. And it just makes a lot of sense to me, given that what they do is they maximize their red, orange, yellow in a variety of ways that then sort of push their way out past the heart into the indigo ray just by pure willpower. And that willpower, like I said, is of sort of the the third chakra, but that is how they use it. That is how the negative entity seeks the creator. So they may do as they see fit, and you are equipped with, maybe... Well, they say that the path, I've read this, not in the raw material, but in other quo material, so, take it with a grain of salt, but they've described the negative path as the path that is not. And then you have the positive path and the path that which is. And when you think that you've been equipped with 7 chakras, maybe you should use them all. And negative entities goes, I don't want to use that one. And so I don't know, how they rationalize that. That's a whole nother podcast probably. But I do understand that they feel very much the same as we do. So just so you know, as I explain this, and I sound so confident about the path that is, well, they do really, really feel that their path is correct as well. They've just looked at similar things that I've looked at here and tell you about, but they've come to different conclusions, and that is the free will, nature of this universe. So lastly, I'm just going to wrap it up here with, one little random kind of quote, which is mostly just to give you the idea that, no matter what you do, what you seek, the worst case scenario is that you may die. And, you are a being of infinity. You're a being of the creator. Take it with a grain of salt, because obviously I don't know for a fact, but it is my understanding that you will then reincarnate again, either in this either in this world or another world or whatever. But if you were a perfectly balanced entity, strongly polarized in the service to others path, in the right hand path, as they will state in this quote, there is a sort of protection in a way, in that it's not real protection in that like physical things will be shielded from hurting you, but more so that the worst case scenario that can happen is that your yellow ray vehicle, in other words your physical body, could die and you could transform into one of your other bodies before then, possibly reincarnating again. In other words, the worst case scenario is that you would just be transformed, and you can, the infinity of creation is that you can transform over and over and over again. So this question is from 95.25. Well, and actually, instead of reading you the question, it's it'll get into other categories, which I don't want to explain right now. I'm just trying to keep this somewhat focused. So I'll just read the part of the answer that's relevant. Ross says, if any entity is able to dwell completely in unity, the only harm that may occur to it is the changing of the outward physical yellow ray vehicle into the more light-filled mind-body-spirit complex's vehicle by the process of death. All other suffering and pain is as nothing to one such as this. We may note that this perfect configuration of the mind-body-spirit complexes while within third density vehicle is extraordinarily rare. End of quote. So as you see here, right, the worst case scenario that can happen to you in your mind-body-spirit complex is that your body may be temporarily transformed into, as they state, if you pass along from the yellow ray, you go into the indigo ray body, and you get to review your life and then figure out what lessons you've learned and not learned and what future lessons you seek to learn. And then you reincarnate into another, maybe another third density body. Maybe you've made it past the grade and you now want to reincarnate into a fourth density body in a fourth density environment. That is all going to be up to the free will of you and how far you are along your path. And actually, I said I was going to wrap it up with that, but I'm going to wrap it up with this one because I always love this quote, and I don't know why, but even though it's not totally relevant to the body, it's just relevant to Catalyst and just a good reminder. So I want you to know that, even in the body is a creature of the mind, and you're trying to make sense of all of this stuff. I do want you to know also that the quickest way to learn is to deal with other selves. So, the quickest way to learn is to obviously pay attention, right? Pay attention to your body, pay attention to the feelings and the thoughts and the things that are going through there. But you will also need somebody else to help mirror things to you, to help show you the fruits of your beingness, to help you reflect on things that you may miss, that your perception may be too narrow to see and someone else's perception can help you. So I just want to give you a friendly reminder from session 1913. They state, the quickest way to learn is to deal with other selves. This is a much greater catalyst than dealing dealing with the self. Dealing with the self without other selves is akin to living without what you would call mirrors. Thus, the self cannot see the fruits of its beingness. Thus, each may aid each by reflection. End of quote. So just as I am sitting here reading things to you about your mind and your body and your spirit, I am being a mirror for you so that you may then reflect on the things in your life and how I've explained them and think about, hey, how does that make sense to me? How is what he's saying related to me? Well, that, my friend, is sort of the work of the mirror. And so I am here to remind you of all those wonderful things. You are a being of infinite worth. Let me go up through the chakras. Well, I don't know this for sure, but you are safe. You have a roof over your head. Food will come tomorrow. God, give us our daily bread. Thank you. I am being a seeker, a individual in this life. I am an animal with animal instincts, and I have thoughts and feelings and emotions that come from myself that must be accepted and seen as worthy. And I am also, in my third chakra, I am also part of this wonderful creation that is this world, that is this, that I have family, I have friends, I have work, I have group, I have my sports that I do. I have everybody that in my life that is there to just be a part of it. I love them. Right now, I go into my heart, and I love all of those entities that may be difficult to love. I do love the positive and the negative seekers, and I like to accept the parts of myself that are hard to accept, and the parts of, myself in others that are also hard to accept that I see in others. And then let's go into my throat chakra. I am happy to express the feelings in my heart. I am happy to be an example of the life that I wish others to live. I speak the truth. I speak my truth. I speak, abracadabra, right? I create what I speak. There you go. And I am, let's say, if you wanted positive affirmations, I'm happy with the things that come out of my mouth. I may make mistakes, but that is okay. I'm all right with it. And then let's go on indigo. I am a being of infinite worth. I am worthy. I am loved. I am accepted. I am an infinite portion of the Creator. And all is well. And so, my friends, with that, I thank you for listening. If you appreciated the podcast and the topics, if you could please give it a like. That's how I sort of know that the topics I've picked and maybe the things I'm speaking about that you're appreciating. And if you could, give it a share, leave me a comment, do share it around if you're feeling that this is helpful. Share it to one person that, maybe you think that could use these understandings, as I know they are a little bit more rare to come by without much distortion. And that's sort of why I want to be here and speak things, because I listen to other people sometimes and I don't fully resonate with everything they state. Of course, you may not resonate with everything I state here as well, and that's okay. I can be, not completely correct, but I do want to share my truth as I feel it to be. And if you, appreciate that truth, then I thank you for sharing. And if you find value in this too, then I would also appreciate if you had the abundance to jump on my Patreon, maybe shoot me a one-time PayPal. Pretty sure I can do Interact e-transfers if you send the Law of One. Oh, oopsie, you better look at my website, theoneinfinitecreator.com. It's on there. I think it's the law of one spiritual advice at gmail.com. But anyways, I seek to give all this information for free. I seek to share this for free. I would never want to put it behind a paywall. That is not my thing. Part of my understanding of the heart chakra is to freely give and freely receive. And so I do seek to give all of this for free. And if you feel, the gratitude, you have a bit of abundance to share, I would very much appreciate it if you could support me in this endeavor. And if you don't have the abundance to share, that is totally fine as well. There's absolutely no expectation of it. All I want to do is just give, and I'm just very grateful for all of those who do give back, and that, you are giving so that other people who can't give can receive all of this for free. So thank you, 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 thank you. I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope this podcast was, maybe it was a bit more sporadic and all over the place, but I hope that you could feel that, I'm more passionate about what I'm talking about here. So let me know what you think about this one and compared to other ones. Maybe I'll, try to find a mix between the two, but I thought this was a fun one today. So thank you guys for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. I will be back again next Tuesday with another one. Okay, take care.